Okie dokie. So, as I said, I'd like to thank in particular PEXA, our key partner with respect to today's webinar, and the support they've been providing to particularly property law firms and conveyancing profession and property developers is just outstanding. And we're delighted that PEXA is one of our key strategic partners alongside companies like NAB and Telstra Australia Post, Microsoft, and many others. So once again, to the team from PEXA, thank you very, very much. The focus today is improving revenues and profits for professional services firms and practices. We've got the lineup here. I've mentioned we've got Angela, Liz, and Samantha that will be joining us. I'm the host. I'll be controlling some slides, but then really directing to our experts to address particular topics and subpoints as we go through. We'll be looking at the drivers of revenues and profits. I'll kick that area off. Then looking at specifically, well, how do we attract new customers to our practices? Okay, so they've made an inquiry. How do we convert that inquirer into an actual paying customer? Through to what's the strategy for pricing for customer satisfaction, solid profit, and being able to generate referrals from those customers and clients? A sub-element of that, which is really critical, is the importance not only of the brand and branding strategy for your practice, but also your personal professional brand. So as professionals, of course, clients are dealing with people. This is service delivery, professional service delivery. So it's a really important area to get an understanding of. And then when it comes to social media, we all use social media, various platforms for various things, but understanding the importance of what social media really moves the dial and makes a positive difference with respect to your practice brand and your personal professional brand. And then finally, a lot of professional services firms, they sort of manage a particular transaction. Property services, conveyancing is a classic example. Someone's buying a home, someone's selling a home. So it's a very intense period of time. And then in many people, if you think about the profession, sometimes it's talked about having a file or having a matter, as opposed to having a client and having a relationship. So I'll come back towards the end and talk a bit more specifically around some of the opportunities around having an ongoing relationship after the file is closed or the transaction is over. How to continue to add value, which will lead then to more positive word of mouth referrals for other new clients coming, into your practice. But let me just, walk us very quickly through what we call the practice profit tree. So we all know what profit is, right? Revenue minus our costs and ultimately, minus the taxes that we have to pay. When we look at the branches of the tree and we look at revenue, at one level, there are sort of three key things that we can play around with to increase the revenue line. There's the number of clients that we've got. There's the service offerings that we've got. And so again, one way of increasing revenue is to expand those service offerings. And then thirdly, what are we charging? And you'll see there with that particular branch about fee charge per service. So perhaps there's service A, there's service B, there's service C. And then in terms of expenses, of course, we've got the costs to deliver the service. So in accounting parlance, back when I taught at the University of Melbourne, we were talking about variable costs, the costs that vary based on the amount of work that is taking place versus the fixed costs. The fixed cost being, it doesn't matter whether you've got one client and one file, you've still got a whole bunch of fixed costs. So things like marketing and promotion, your IT infrastructure, which could be hardware, software, broadband access, office and miscellaneous related expenses if you're actually, renting or, have your own premises that you're operating from. There's other non-delivery expenses associated with employees beyond wages and salaries, insurances, finances, and then other related costs that are cropping up from time to time that are fixed. But in terms of cost of delivering services, we go across then to the right-hand side and we say, well, what are our objectives? How can we be reducing our expenses when it comes to that? So clearly, can we reduce the amount of time it takes to manage a particular transaction or file or deliver a particular service? Can we look at what the level of productivity that we're getting from people that we're paying money to, our employees or perhaps subcontractors that are actually doing the human dimensions of that work? And so from a strategic point of view, what does that mean? Well, that means strategies to deal with those sorts of things like, well, can we get it right the first time? We had some coaching sessions in the last few weeks with a number of conveyancing firm owners, and we were just looking at things like the calculations around local council rates and the percentage of times the team were actually getting those calculations incorrect and then having to do the rework. And so that's just one very simple example that for some firms, that is, work expanding to fill the time available by the staff, as opposed to getting it right the first time. There's also, significant opportunities now to leverage integrated software. So you're not data keying 4 or 5 times the same data to actually get the job done. You're not having to log into one thing, log out, log into another thing. And we're seeing a lot more coming down the pipeline in terms of one digital workspace that once you've logged in and opened up a file, you're working all your way through it. And then there's the extent to which the clients, once educated, can start doing more themselves, start providing more of this data in a digital format that again saves time from your perspective and hassle for them. So it adds value for them if they can actually do some of it quite easily and then save you the time. So when we talk about the far sort of right-hand side, the strategies, they're the sorts of things, I should be looking at that stuff if in fact I want to reduce the cost of delivering a particular service. If I go up above that, right to the top, to branches, again, number of clients, objectives, get more inquiries, get more people making contact, wanting to find out whether you can serve them. And secondly, increasing the percentage of those that become clients. It's one thing to invest the time and effort to attract them and then to have interactions with them. But if ultimately they don't become a client and buy one of those services you're going to charge a fee for, there's been a lot of cost, time and effort go out that's not going to convert into revenue. Now, what are the strategies around those things? Well, clearly the brand, the promotion, the leveraging of public relations to drive in the right sort of inquiries and the right volume of them. Then what we call at Small Business Australia, the sales process. Yes, we're all involved in sales. We have to convert the inquirer or the prospect into a paying client. And we see with some of the coaching we've been doing with professional service firms over the last few months, significant opportunities to improve the percentage conversion rate by actually having a simplified and easy to implement sales process. And sales in this case is, a simple way of helping these people making inquiries to become clients. The service types, there are opportunities to be adding services above the core service that you might be providing. And that might involve the provision of some ongoing information to build a client relationship that then will lead to more referrals. And for those of you that are running law firms, as an example, the ability then to get involved with the family will and other family law and other legal related issues. If the client's a small business owner, the opportunity then you've helped them with the property transaction to get involved in commercial contract and commercial legal advice. So there are significant opportunities, particularly for the law firms amongst you, but there are also opportunities for accounting firms and conveyancing practices to build a relationship with the client. So that's a bit of an overview of the profit tree and the sorts of branches, the objectives, and some of the strategies. And now for the webinar, we're going to get our 3 experts, rather than me, the host, to really start digging in more detail around some of those key strategies and what to do. And so the first one we're going to have a bit of a chat about is around attracting new customers. And there's I suppose a significant opportunity, Liz, and I'd like you to share some of your thoughts on this around existing clients that you've got and how they can help you attract new customers, as well as past customers that maybe you served a couple of years ago, and just the importance of both of those groups when it comes to attracting new customers.
Thanks, Phil. I think the key thing with existing and past customers, even if you're currently thinking, I don't necessarily have something for them right now, it's actually, they say that the cost of acquiring a new customer can cost 5 to 25 times more than retaining an existing one. But the success rate of selling to a customer you already have is 60 to 70% compared to around 5 to 20% for a new customer. And I think those statistics are really important when you start thinking. It's much easier to think, okay, how else can we actually help our existing customers? What other problems can we help them solve? What other jobs can we help them get done? And then communicating that to them, because you've already, got over one of the biggest objections customers have, and that is trust. They already trust you. They've already worked with you. They already know you. They already have an experience of your pricing structure. So it's much easier to think about actually increasing, if you like, the lifetime value of your existing customers than it is to get new customers on. The other fabulous thing about existing and past customers, again, because they already know you, is that they can be brilliant referrals. So they can, if you like, pass on their trust of you to friends and family. So by continually tapping in, communicating with them, making sure they know that you're there, that you're still doing things, that you do even more than what they did for you, then if they come across someone who needs similar services, your name will be top of mind. And that's critical. You want your name to always be top of mind for particularly past customers and existing customers for those referrals.
So one of the things we've seen, Liz, with some of the coaching we've been doing with professional firms that are involved with sort of conveyancing property transfer spaces, you'll often see real estate agents that have sold the property. To say it's a first-time home buyer, sort of a millennial, maybe it's a couple in their early 30s, mid-30s. They're super excited, got their first home, and here's a photo they'll go and take with their mobile phone, to get on Instagram with the sold sticker. Now, again, we have some members of Business Advantage that are sort of taking advantage of that opportunity to also get them to hold up a sign about the conveyancing firm and running some competitions in terms of then contributing to those people then that take that photo and then share it. Because the friends of those people on Instagram that are in the similar stage of life, a good chunk of them are potentially in the market in coming months and maybe the next year or two, and then the brand has been put in front of people. Another interesting thing with a couple of others is they've realized that 2 years ago, they did the file and did the transaction, but some of the clients there had gone on to a fixed rate mortgage for 2 years. And so with mortgage rates changing, coming off a fixed rate, there's a great opportunity for that firm operator to then introduce them to some mortgage brokers that could actually review the whole situation for them. So I think this theme about trust, and we're going to talk a bit more about it a bit later on, is such a critical one. I'd like to move now to sort of websites, and there's a lot of issues that we don't recognize that we've got in terms of our websites until we hear what the most common ones are and make a list of them and then check with whoever's built our website or managing our website for us to make sure that we're not committing some of these. But I'd like to get you, Angela. You and your team spend your life helping businesses get websites together and keep them up to date and keep them performing effectively. Could you share with us some of the issues that are still out there, believe it or not, with many existing websites?
Yeah, thanks, Bill. One of the really big ones that is still out there, surprisingly, is that websites aren't mobile responsive. And we know that 60 to 70% of people are using their website, their mobile phone to access websites. So if your website was built, maybe 5-10 years ago, and believe me, there's a lot out there that have been, it might not be mobile responsive. And so Google is just not going to give you any traction there. Also security, having that HTTPS, making sure that your website is secure is another thing that layers on that trust that Liz was talking to. Things like, cluttered, outdated. There was a time where websites needed to have everything above the fold and everybody needed to jam all that content into the top half. Well, that's changed now. Websites, we really do want people scrolling through websites. They are, we're used to scrolling on our social media, so people are more comfortable scrolling and looking at on a phone. So it's making sure that we don't have a cluttered website. It's things like making sure that that it's loading quickly. People are loading, maybe you've loaded some big videos onto your website rather than using YouTube and then putting a link in, or maybe you've got massive images, and that really slows down a website. And we know that, you've got about, I think it's 2.6 or 1.7 seconds, not very long, to really grab someone's attention when they're landing on your website to see if it's right for you, if they've found you, if you've been lucky enough that they've found you, if your website's slow or cluttered. And another thing is call to actions. A lot of websites they're not telling anybody where to go. When we build a website, we always talk about the fact that, let's imagine we're building it for a small child and we're going to hold their hand and we're going to walk them through every stage of that website so they know where to go next. Your people are landing there. You want them to understand what you want them to do. They've found you. So now help them find the answers that they're looking for. I think they're the big things that we really still are seeing time and time again.
Look, that's really helpful, Angela. I think if I think about Google in particular, what I'm hearing there is, even though that your website might look great on a laptop or on a big PC type screen, Google itself is down marking you if you're not mobile responsive. So it may not even help you with any, organic search results, or SEO is the jargon in the field, in terms of where you rank when people are searching and potentially getting to your website, or even finding the fact that you're someone who's in the market providing the services they're looking for. So even if you, didn't believe, or you think, well, look, my customers, target clients are a bit older, they're using big screens, they don't use mobile phones to look at this sort of stuff, it's still going to impact the likelihood of where you come up on the screen, on the big screen. So I'm hearing you've got to get that right. The other thing I'm hearing is you've got to keep it light. So not heavy files, not big stuff on that thing. And you say sort of holding the hand, and we'll talk a bit more about educating the prospective client to build trust and demonstrate value, which helps you also then charge a higher price than a low cost, no frills internet type provider, of which there are a few out there. But as I say, they're no frills, and they're certainly not educating and holding the hand, of the client. I'm just a little bit distracted there. My phone started buzzing on me. Look, Liz, what about sort of emails and sort of the telephone conversations and some of the sort of classic things that you're seeing with a number of your clients with respect to not optimizing and maximizing this opportunity to attract and convert clients?
Yeah, there's a couple of things there, Bill. I think going back to websites, I think many websites, you can land on them and you're not actually sure if you're who they're targeting, if it's actually for you. So I think being really clear about your target market or who you serve. And the other thing with websites is actually making sure that they can, because often websites are the first experience they have of you, making sure your website is there to serve. So they land, they want to get a sense that, can I trust this professional? And so having things that build trust, such as frequently asked questions and things like that, are really critical. And then the next one, which leads into your question, is having an ability to actually contact you. So many times we hear of people that say, all there is a contact us form, but we want to actually speak to someone, we want to get this lined up now, and we don't just want a contact us form to go into the ether. So having a phone number on your website, I think, is really, really critical. And then it comes down to actually making sure that people understand how you use that contact form for the customers. So for example, if you're kind of in this solo and you don't have a receptionist, the first thing to think about is having some sort of receptionist, and there are companies out there that do that for you. Or if you don't, and you're often with customers, actually having something in your message that says, thank you so much, we can't wait to start working with you. We return our calls in this time frame, and it might be, between 3 and 5 in the afternoon, or whatever that is, so that people then go, okay, the expectations have been set. I know I'm going to get a return call. It's all good. And then they're happy to leave the message. But what often happens is it's just leave a message and people go, okay, I'm just going to call the next one. And you've lost that potential sale. So there's lots of ways you can actually, if you like, make if you can't answer the phone, make that really engaging. And I think if you can answer the phone, also think about how you're actually answering the phone, and so that they know they've landed in the right place. They know they've rung the right person, and they're already ready to kind of go, yep, you're it for us, just from the way you actually answer it. I think emails are very similar in the sense that it's really important that you get back to people in a timely manner. And if you have a process to do that, make sure that they know what that process is. So again, if you're, you can actually, if you might have a VA or an executive assistant that can triage your emails so that you can get back to people quite quickly. With AI now, you could also set up, like if it's a particular type of question, or you can actually email people back quite quickly with a list of frequently asked questions, and let them know that you will call them as between those hours that you call back. So there's actually quite a few ways now that you can start optimizing the way that you answer the phone, the way you set expectations in your message, and again with your emails, that mean that you won't lose the sale. They're not going to quickly jump to the next person in the Google search.
That's fantastic. Thank you, Liz. And I think you mentioned AI, which I think is quite interesting. Angela, I know that when we were at the conference, at the end of October, we had Microsoft come and take us through Copilot and what sort of impact Copilot will have, particularly on the productivity of knowledge workers in larger corporations. And we talked a lot about, look, everyone should go and give at least ChatGPT a go and learn how to use it and sort of see what it does. One of the things that has been implemented in America by Google is now when you do a search on Google, if you're in the US, it actually gives you a little essay that its AI tool, which is called Gemini, develops for you. So the first part of what you see is actually an answer to these questions. Now, prior to them turning that on, if you asked a particular question around what should I look for in a conveyancer, some blog posts some ads would come up from who's bought the ads from conveyancing firms. Some blog posts would come up from some conveyancing firms that have been providing educational material. And so we're already seeing in the US and, overnight, NASDAQ, which is the major stock market that Google or Alphabet is on, has declined quite dramatically as people are now starting to think, well, what's the impact going to be on a company like that when some people won't end up clicking on the link to go to the website of the business if they're actually getting the bulk of the information they need from AI? Can you just share with us, Angela, some of your perspectives around what some of these likely impacts are going to be on the way we used to do search engine marketing and digital marketing 6 months ago? Because this thing's coming to Australia soon, and what we just need to be aware of and to keep our eyes open given what's coming.
Yeah, look, I think, you're right. Look, I think there's a lot of things. The first thing I would say is that I don't think we all need to panic. I think that the changes, whilst they will be changes, it won't be ultimately terrifyingly big changes. At the end of the day, the algorithm, the AI, the way it's all working now is that it's just reading much more like a human. And it's more intent driven. So it can now understand the intent of a question that somebody types in. So, for example, the idea now is that really if you're going to end up in that top section, it's because you've got, like Liz was talking about, frequently asked questions on your website. The content that you're producing across your social media is answering people's questions, providing knowledge, telling people about your business. Because the algorithm will be looking for what it believes the person searching was intending to look for. And if your content on your website is answering that intent, that search intent, then you will appear higher in that feed. And so that's things like, for example, there's information, there's all different kinds of intent, but there's informational intent. So what is conveyancing? How does conveyancing work? And that's having a blog on your website and having that information, or putting that on LinkedIn or on your social media. Navigational intent, more around finding things on someone's website. So making sure that within your website, you're linking to different pages and different things that people will be looking for, because all of that helps the algorithm and helps your website be found. There's transactional, how much, how do I buy, where do I buy? And then there's also, things like, the best, who's the best conveyancer, or who's the best law firm for buying a new house, or who's the best. And then you have content on your website answering those questions. And that then allows the algorithm to find it decides the intent of the question and then finds that content on your website and pushes you further up. So I'm not sure that it's, in lots of ways, it's probably a great thing, because providing content, when you're a business that you know what you're doing and you've got this information, it's just about getting it onto a digital platform so that the algorithm can find you. And I think that that's a really powerful thing. And using things like ChatGPT to help you write blogs, you don't just let it write it and put it up there. You've got to read it and make sure it makes sense and then add your own things. But it's a good starting point and a good time saver. I think, and a lot of this content's evergreen as well. So you can use it time and time again to just layer upon layer that effect of all of your social media, your website, your digital footprint to answer those intent-based questions about what you provide, I think are going to help, you know, turn around any negative impacts, I guess, that this new phase and new intelligence will change.
Well, thanks a lot, Angela. It's just refreshing, and I think for all of us, and we're all business owners and operators here, keeping a calm head, thinking our way through this, not sort of dealing with all these sort of headlines that keep hitting us all the time around everything's a crisis, the world's coming to an end. So don't get too overstressed about it, but it's certainly something for us to keep a watching brief on. But at the end of the day, understanding what's on the minds of the target customer, and then interacting with them in the appropriate way for the website to be found, and then for them to want to continue to the next part of the conversation. And that's probably a great time now to get some of your thoughts, Samantha, around sort of the importance of the deep understanding of a customer profile of who you're after, and linking that to what their needs are, so that when they first come and have that interaction, looking at the website, or picking up the phone and ringing you up, that you're well placed to move them down through what we call here the funnel.
Great to be here, guys. Thanks all for attending. So we're living in a human-to-human world. It's not B2C, it's not B2B, it's human-to-human, and people gel with people who they like, trust, and respect. So as Liz has mentioned, and Bill and Angela, it's all about understanding your target market. And when you start to speak their language, you really start to draw them in. It's not about you. They don't care about you. We're living in a really fast-paced, scrolling world right now. But if you understand their needs and wants, then you can talk to them in a way that they immediately take one step into, and then nurture them along the journey. So I would imagine, and I haven't used a conveyor, well, I have used a lawyer, but people come with pain, people come with a lack of trust, and it's about understanding where is that lack of trust coming from, and what are some of the things that you can do, not just virtually and digitally, but in your community, to be able to understand their needs and wants.
Fantastic. Liz, can you expand a bit around sort of the concept of, and some of the approaches to sort of educate this target customer that you've got when they first start the interaction, and you want to just bring them down the funnel? So, yeah.
Sorry. So there's a couple of things there. The first thing is that you've got to meet them at their level of awareness. So you don't want to be talking about all the different things that need to get done. So say if it's a conveyancer, conveyancing is actually a lot more complex than I think a lot of people first believe when they buy a house. So it's about, your FAQs should cover that off, and they've probably read some of that or some of your blogs. So it's about making sure and holding their hand and saying, this is all about settling a house, and we're going to make sure that that happens really, really well, and pain-free. Recognizing there's a whole stack of things that need to happen along the way. So this is actually, when you're actually finding out what their actual needs are too, there's, it all depends on where in the process they are, and if they've bought a house or sold a house before. So you might have quite a different conversation with someone if they've used products and services such as yours before versus if they haven't. And one of the great ways to actually find out what their needs might be is to actually, when you have customers that have used your services, is to ask them some questions about what their needs are. So it might be, when you came to us, what did you know about what you needed? What didn't you know about what you needed? What did you find most useful about what we explained to you and talked to you about? What just overwhelmed you? Because the last thing you want to be doing in an initial conversation is actually overwhelming them. But at the same time, you want to be educating them that the process isn't necessarily as simple as, just turning up on a particular day and handing across money. It's not something that, the bank can just deal with on their own. And I guess that I'm talking specifically about conveyances there, but it's about understanding where are they at in their journey, and not overwhelming them while giving them the confidence that you can take them on that complete journey. That's about understanding their level of awareness. The other thing to understand with customers is that not everyone you see on social media or you get referred is solution seeking. So we talk about, your buyers are problem aware and solution seeking. So you want to both market to the ones that, you want to stay in the market for the people that aren't yet solution seeking, but understand that the sales conversation actually happens with the one that is solution seeking. And I think the other thing that we've been seeing a lot more in social media, and we've been hearing a lot more in sales conversations, Bill, is that people don't want to be presented with the problems. They want to talk about solving the problem. So, and I know that's quite a subtle difference, but if what you do is you just put all the problems in front of the customer, you can overwhelm them quite quickly. And what they really want to understand is that you will actually solve these problems for me.
Thank you, Liz. And it strikes me in thinking about what Sam was saying around the customer profiling and listening to you as well, that, we've got, sort of say, with property purchases, you've got some people that are going to be first time owner occupiers. Super exciting, never done it before, most likely never done it before. Maybe they've been a property investor, but quite unlikely. And so there's so much other stuff, and they're going to need to, be getting the household connected. They're going to have to move. There's a whole bunch of stuff. You've got people that have, had some experience of doing it before, and they're, selling and buying, another group. You've got a group that are buying as investors. And so there's a bunch of things they're not moving, doing the removal thing's not going to be a problem that they're going to have to deal with over some period of time. But there's a bunch of other things. They're going to ultimately need to have the place ready to be rented out and get a good tenant and those sorts of things. So I think this, understanding what, and then there's commercial property over and above residential, right? Different again. So a number of the websites that we see in this area, they're reasonably generic, and this is what we do, conveyancing. But of course, if we can structure them and then stream people the right way down the particular persona or the particular type of client that they'll be, that will help it be, you're holding their hand or leading them through in the appropriate way, given exactly the segment that they're in. One of the things I want to have a brief chat about now is something that we sort of call the 4 reasons, in fact, that people don't buy. Let me find my little button here, because I think I've heard the word trust mentioned 3 or 4 times already in our session. And in our experience, at least, and looking at a number of other industries that we've consulted to over the years, particularly when it relates to financial servicey, professional service related things, there's 4 reasons why people don't buy. They don't have any trust in you. They don't see that there's a need that they've got. So there's not really a problem, Liz. They're not problem aware yet necessarily ready for a solution. Whatever's being put in front of them is no help. So even if they've got the need, and then finally, there's no hurry. And I think the reality is that if, in fact, in the real world, actually they do have a need, and you can actually help them, and they do need to get something done pretty quickly. So one of the things we do know with property transfers and things is a time frame, there's a settlement date, there's a 30, 60-day period. Unlike many other professional services beyond probably superannuation and taxation returns, if it's general advice, there's not necessarily the pressing time frame and hurry. But the reality is that if they've got the need and you can help, and they need to get something done, if they don't go forward, it's because they don't trust you. So in terms of their interactions with your website, reading your emails, chatting with you on the phone, whatever it is, has led them to the conclusion that they just don't feel trust. So, we then get off asked the question, well, what do we do? How do we go about building trust? And we talk about the 4 C's here at Small Business Australia. So the first one's around commonality, that we've got something in common, which may be demonstrated by having deep empathy and understanding based on your profile, based on some of those questions that you ask clients that you've served, where they were overwhelmed, what they were most uncertain about, what could you have done better. You can demonstrate commonality with that particular person. Now, character is important. So putting the needs, being a helper, a server, perhaps your firm's not the right firm to help this particular client, because you don't do many that involve international money transfers and commercial property. You really are focused on residential. So making sure that you're not just trying to try and win this thing when because it's going to be good for my business, but in fact, the needs of this client would be better served by someone else who's more of a specialist in that area. But the servant mentality, I'm here to help you and serve you. Credibility. So if you think about when we, in the old days, went to law firms, or you go and see your GP and you sit down, what do you see on the wall? You see these certificates, or in the foyer of the law firm that I get my commercial law advice, there's a big wall of books and a whole bunch of certificates and a whole bunch of awards. And this is very much making tangible the credibility. So you guys have got qualifications, you've done your continuing professional development. You may have won some awards. You may have been covered in the media. All of that type of material will help build credibility. You telling the story about how long you've been in the profession, how many clients you've served over the years. That, of course, can be on the website. And if you're getting to see people face-to-face in terms of what you're wearing, how you present yourself, your briefcase. Remember the good old days of wandering around with settlement agents? And again, the people would turn up with the briefcase at the bank and all the rest of it. So think about what we would sort of call making visible the invisible, because this will have a big impact when we get to thinking about, well, how can we price and charge what we're really worth? And then competence is the fourth C. And you don't really talk about competence, but the way you go about things, presenting the business on the website, your brand strategy, the FAQs leading to the inquiry, to the messages to when you're going to get back. There's nothing worse than we all know than having to play phone tag. Now, if that's as generic as that, the voicemail message being left when someone calls you now, and it's not more specific, I'm saying, well, geez, it's not a really good process. When am I supposed to call them? Can't be hard. I'll go on to the next one. So when you think about these 4 C's and you think about your current processes and the tools that you're using, from a marketing promotion perspective, the prospective customer needs to be experiencing this from the very first time they come across your business, all the way through marketing, which we define as generating inquiries from the right type of customers, the sales process, so they go from being a prospect and an inquirer into becoming a client, and then in terms of the service delivery process, which I'd like to talk a little bit about now and get some of the views of our experts. So the theme here now is pricing for customer satisfaction, profit and getting referrals. And I've just described this making visible the invisible. And I'll briefly tell a story. So a few years ago, I needed to get a roller door installed on a garage in my home here in Melbourne. So it's like, okay, I'll try and get 2 or 3 quotes, right, for someone to come around here. Of course, you guys as professionals never do quotes, right? Plumbers quote, roller door guys quote, but professionals make proposals. Here are our professional fees. Here are the things that we'll do for you. But in the end, I had only one of the 3 people I spoke with, and some of them send us a photo, etc. And one said, look, we need to know a couple of other things. And I said, well, what are they? Can you measure the vertical distance for us on each side from the top to the bottom? Because in many cases, the garage doors, there'll be one part of it will actually need to be a little bit longer than the other. Otherwise, you're going to have a hole. And that's where a lot of dust and stuff will get in and put dust all over your car and all over the stuff that you're storing. So only person to do that, educating me and making much more visible the importance of that. And of course, that involves a bit of custom cutting when they manufacture the door. So they won the business. I think they charged probably a 20% premium over the other 2. But I became a more informed inquirer thanks to that 3rd one I spoke to, who won the business and did a wonderful job. But Samantha, I'd be interested in some of your insights and perspectives here around this need to educate the customer and setting appropriate expectations, particularly if they've never gone through, buying and selling a property before and dealing with a property lawyer and a conveyancer, through to then the experience that they have and the importance of those things and thinking about them.
Yeah, it's all about being interested, not interesting, right? So people want you to ask about them and where they are and what their problems are. So once you're understanding where they're at, then it's about really providing solutions. And there's so many brands out there, there's so many conveyancing firms, there's so many lawyers, especially now, online, offline. It's like, where do we go? Who do we choose? People buy into people. So if you are interested in them, your brand positioning is exactly what they're after. The customer experience is consistent across the board, and you're showing that you're really leaning in and understanding what they want, you're being relatable, then if you are really adding value to them, they may lean in more to you than anyone else. And I think that's the bit that sometimes we overlook. We overlook at, we're a conveyancing firm, we're a legal firm. Yeah, but actually you're a person, and people invest into people they like, trust and respect. So it's actually about being really curious and understanding what they need, and then presenting your solution and being with them along the journey.
Yes.
And lastly, brand values. You know, when you buy from a brand, you trust them, the values are the same, it's consistent. So that whole customer experience has to be consistent from start to finish, and then ongoing once they've left you, because then you will get those referrals.
Great, Sam. And we're going to really dig into sort of branding shortly. Liz, sort of, understand, I know you mentioned, look, you don't want to overwhelm the customer in terms of pointing out all the potential problems they could have, when they're starting to become problem aware versus when they're moving into it's time to buy the solution. But, given what I've just shared around the old roller door story and experience that I had, can you sort of, expand, with us around, how this opens up the opportunity to build trust and differentiate and charge a premium over the generic quotes that are provided?
Yep. So I think when I was saying don't overwhelm them with all the problems, there's a way of presenting the problems where it's about service. And I think your example was absolutely brilliant. So they weren't just coming out and saying, oh, look, well, lots of people have this problem, so da-da-da-da-da. They presented it to you more as them serving you. So you do want to educate your customers, and it's about, as Sam said, being really curious and asking those questions, and then explaining perhaps the rationale for the question as, the reason why I'm asking this is because sometimes this can happen. I think often when problems are presented, it's presented as if this will happen to you. Whereas what you want to do is be curious and see where they're at, and then say that the reason why you're asking that is because sometimes these sorts of things can happen. And what that's actually doing, like in your roller door example, is it's showing them your knowledge, that you understand where they're at and the journey that they could end up going on, and that you're doing, the right thing by them by actually asking those questions up front. The other thing that would be really useful for a lot of professional services firms, depending on, the matter that's the customer has come to them for, is to actually have, we've talked about FAQs, frequently asked questions, but actually have kind of like, so you're buying a house or you're investing, have a document that explains the journey that they could go on. And that document, because they can consume it at their leisure, at their own pace, will be less overwhelming than an initial phone call or even an initial meeting. So it's kind of, there's a little bit of, how much do you give in, over the phone, or how much do you give in then that first in-person meeting versus how much you can actually give in a document. And I think educating is really, really important. But I think educating through being curious is more effective when you're face-to-face or on the phone. And that, as Sam said, that's great for actually building that trust and helping that customer understand you're there to serve, rather than they're there as a human. They're not there as a transaction for you. And I think that's when we can start talking about premiums. Customers will always pay more when they feel like they're being treated as a person, as opposed to a transaction.
Fantastic, Liz. And look, we sort of often talk about at Small Business Australia, a definition of a loyal customer client is someone who stays, says, and pays. So if you've successfully built the 4 C's of trust up, and they have a need and you can help, there will be a hurry. So they'll become a client. They'll go from an inquirer to being a client. But not only then will they say good things about you in terms of when they're chatting with their friends and who did you get to help you with X, Y, and Z? And, I went and worked with A, B, and C. They were terrific because of X, Y, and Z. Blah, 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 blah. You should definitely consider them. So that's a classic word of mouth referral. So they'll say good things. They'll say and pay. So a premium. And next time around, they need your types of products and services. They're going to stay with you. So this sort of stay, say, and pay, think about those things around a loyal customer. And geez, if that's helping you attract new customers through referrals, that's going to reduce the cost of getting a new customer compared to the activity of maintaining a website and the blog and social media and digital advertising related activity. If they're then paying a premium, that means you're making a bit more gross profit, per file or matter that you're dealing on. And then, of course, in terms of your own satisfaction with clients that you've helped educate, they're an absolute delight and pleasure to deal with, as opposed to some that come for your price and end up being quite unprofitable, not just financially, but emotionally, in terms of you and your staff having to deal with them. I'd like to spend a couple of minutes now really getting into brands and social media. And so someone said to me recently, I was in the UK, they said, look, you remember about social media? It's social. That's about people. It's not about corporate brands and things. People interact and engage with people. So I love the human to human, Sam, that you mentioned earlier on. Of course, we all know what our business brand is, and we've got a name, we might have a logo, we might have colors, we might have a particular font that we've come up with, with a graphic design studio or someone's designed the website for us. But I just want you to sort of share with us, Sam, around what a personal, professional brand is and why is it important for owners of practices?
Can do. Can I just jump in just before on that last slide and just add in, whenever I get an inquiry, right, and we all will through email on some level, I always put their name into LinkedIn. And it's being able to understand like how they communicate, what they've gone through. And I usually do that. And that's coming through personal branding already, where I can either connect or understand the type of personality they are. So then I can be a lot more relatable on the phone to build at least a commonality and a relatability before I then go into understand their needs. So I just had to share that point because that is gold. It works for me every time.
Well, and I think it's a great one, Sam, in that I recently met he's the new CEO of one of the big four banks, but he moved out to Australia during COVID, and they're a significant strategic partner of Small Business Australia. I thought, let's have a look at this fellow here on the LinkedIn profile. Oh golly, we worked at the same firm many years ago. And we also had a similar educational experience. So that when I made contact with him directly to introduce myself, we had some real things in common from many moons ago. And it was a great way to kick off, what's proven to be a terrific professional relationship.
Yeah, there you go. Well, we're living in 2024. We might as well take advantage of these networks, hey? Talking about personal branding, it's super important, especially right now in 2024. I mean, like, we look back on our great-great-grandmothers and grandfathers would never have had the opportunity like we do to be able to connect and engage with an audience. They had to work really hard to get a sale in. But now we can, if we choose to, which I would implore you to, once you understand who you are and what you stand for, is put yourself out there and make yourself visible. Because if you don't, then someone may go to your competitor. And if you think about it, when you really connect with someone, it's like when they leave the room, how do they make you feel? Because it's not until you actually get that connection, that's when you start to then feel something about that brand, whether it's a brand, a logo, or brand is just a logo until someone connects with it, or a person, and then it means something to you. So I would implore everyone to start to invest into building up their own individual personal brands. LinkedIn is a great place to start and understand what is it that your audience needs, who is your target market, and how can I serve and deliver? So coming up with really interesting content that's really going to meet their needs on some level. It's important because we're living in a cluttered world right now. It's disruptive. As I mentioned before, there's so many conveying firms, there's so many legal firms out there. So you really have to stand out and you have to be visible and you have to have a point of difference. And what we're starting to notice is, those individuals, leaders, CEOs, anyone really that is a business owner, the more they're putting themselves out there, that the individual then connects with the individual as opposed to just with a logo.
Fantastic. Thanks a lot, Samantha. Now, Angela, what are your thoughts around, again, if you're running a property, accounting, conveyancing firm, what social media really matters for developing not only your business's brand, but your personal brand? And is this something you can do yourself, or should you be finding a professional in the space?
Good question. It's I think with service-based industries, really Facebook is probably the place to be from a social media, LinkedIn obviously, from a business to business and a person to person in business side of things. I guess one of the things to answer the question, should you be doing it yourself, or should you, it'd be great to be able to engage someone, but engaging someone to handle that, I guess, organic content that you would be creating for a small business can be quite cost prohibitive because it's very time heavy. So, often as our business, we're also a small business, we often would recommend to people that if they can do it themselves, do it yourself, but we would help them with creating a strategy for them or helping them think of content, things like that. But I think it's that, like Sam was talking about, it's that person to person and solving problems, and your social media for any service-based business or any business really is the organic, so not the paid ads. I mean, I think ads is for selling, and your social media feed, so to speak, is for education and showing who you are, who your business is, what you do, how you solve problems, and those sort of things. But I also think a really important thing, particularly for small businesses who don't have massive marketing budgets, excuse me, and big teams behind them, is to pick 1 or 2 platforms that you think are going to work for you and just do them well. Don't try to be everywhere. You know, you don't need to be on TikTok and Instagram and Snapchat and this and that and da-da-da-da-da. Pick where, you know, meet your customers where they are, work out where they are and meet them there, and do a couple of them, but do them well, because otherwise, you know, it's not worth your time, and it's a time-heavy exercise.
Fantastic. Thank you for that, Angela.
AI tools to make it less time-heavy.
But what I'd like to, very quickly move on to now is talking a bit about, well, you've served the client and you've done a great job for them. Let's say, particularly if you're in the field of property services, so you've been helping them get a property settled. When you think about some of the other things that customer might be dealing with, what else could you be helping them with or making them aware of to differentiate yourself over and above having delivered a great professional service? So this is a service called Smaver. Some of you would be aware of it, S-M-A-V-E-R, so Smaver. If you go to smaver.com.au, you'll find it. It's got a couple of things there. One is an interactive moving checklist. So someone who's having to move house can literally use an interactive checklist. So if you don't provide any checklist, it'd be good to provide at least a static one, but you can make them aware of this and they can see exactly the steps are. They can keep a track of it electronically in terms of, you know, getting it all organized. In addition to that, then there are services that they can tap into then to get quotes from different removalist companies, as an example. So that's an example of something to help a client with while you're busily working on everything involved in having this settlement happen on time and smoothly. Then, of course, if you know the client is moving into a new suburb that they haven't lived in before, they're going to be starting from scratch. Not only are they getting moved in, then they've got a whole range of different things that many aren't aware of around the need to update their address details with the Electoral Commission. Now, a classic is to update it with the motor vehicle fines branch of a particular state, because if they don't go and update it, they'll get a speeding fine. At some point in time, they always find you. Then they'll have a whole bunch of late fees and penalties. Not to mention, there's a range of other things that when you move into a new area, you'd like to have available. I call it sort of the digital fridge magnet. So Smaver has something called welcome packs that anyone in Australia, for any one of this, I think it's 700 local government areas now, they can order online and get delivered via email a welcome pack with a whole bunch of really helpful information and reminders. So a number of people come and find this stuff directly on Smaver. They're doing a Google search for a moving checklist or, a guide to a local area. It's a classic example of something that everyone involved in helping people finalize the purchase of some property can, make available to them, let them know about, simply via email, that this is a service that's available that will help them do X, Y, and Z. So adding a bit of value, making a deposit in their emotional bank account, demonstrating an understanding of all the other stuff that particular client's dealing with. So I've just put a note there. If anyone's got any particular questions you'd like to ask the team, please pop them into the chat area now, because we're about to wrap up and then we'll deal with the questions. And I know that the team have been fantastic. I think they've really shared good practical stuff. For those of you that are Business Advantage members, you know that your membership enables you to log in and actually seek business advice online while you're in there. So our coaches are on most times. If they're in a coaching session, they'll organise a time to get back in touch with you about a particular question, and they will act as a concierge in terms of helping you, navigate to the particular resources and video tools that will help you dig deeper into the particular area you're looking to learn more about or improve with respect to your practice. As you know, there are savings from various service suppliers, from big brands to local firms, to help people that are looking to get some external help with things like their digital presence, their websites, their branding strategy, through to any number of other business-related expenses that you might have. And of course, for your staff, there is access to a whole range of training videos, some of which most likely will meet the requirements for continuing professional development, depending on which particular profession that you're in. But certainly for practice owners, a session like today's, a good 1 hour, is definitely a good point when it comes to practice management skills for those of you with CBD requirements. And simply, send us through an email that you've attended and we'll provide you with the evidence that you would require for your audit. I've had a couple via SMS. So ladies, I'm just going to turn a bit to my phone and have a look at what these questions are that have come through. This one I think is probably a good one for you, Angela. It's about some of the new things that people are having promoted to them around using AI for social media. Is that something you've got any direct exposure or experience to at this stage? Can you really, I know I asked you the question about can you do it yourself, but can you fully outsource it to some bot?
Well, I mean, I think that, yes, that technology is definitely coming. And if it's not coming, it's probably here in some form. I think there's a lot of tools out there like Canva, for small businesses to use that are quite inexpensive to create imagery and things like that. But I think where all of that is going to miss the mark is that human to human. People will know that it's been generated with AI. I think pretty soon there's going to be legislation around us saying that things have been generated with AI. So you're going to have to be admitting to the fact that, that's actually not clients, that's AI, or that's not whatever. So I think, yes, there's definitely going to be the ability to automate a lot more to help. But I think to keep that person-to-person connection and to set you apart, because there will definitely be businesses that just jump completely into that AI and set and forget. I think if you've got that human-to-human aspect to what you're doing in your marketing or in your brand presence or across your social media, whether it's your personal brand or professional brand, I think that will make you stand out in that noise.
This one's probably a good one for you, Samantha. And someone says, look, they're a bit, basically said, look, I'm a bit introverted. I'm not that comfortable, being on screens, let alone having my face sort of out there. I know that you've worked with, people across a whole bunch of industries over the years, and you're a natural extrovert, so it comes more naturally to some people than others. What guidance do you have for, helping people sort of take that step, given the importance of some professional personal branding?
Well, first of all, it's really important to put yourself out there, but I understand if you're an introvert, it's incredibly, it's a lot more difficult. But there's certainly certain ways to be able to do that. So, for example, you might not be comfortable in front of a screen, but you might be really good with audio, so you can drop audio messages, or you're a really good writer. But I honestly think you need to find the confidence and certainty to put yourself out there. If you have a really strong message, you know who you are and what you stand for, and you stay in your lane and you know the value you can give. Because that's really, in 2024, one of the only ways, not one of the only ways, one of the major ways to start to grow a brand, and that is through yourself. So as long as you can deliver value, purpose, and you're being integral and authentic, people are going to lean into you. Not everyone will, but certain people will, because everyone has a unique gift. It doesn't matter the way that we communicate, as long as we communicate with value and we connect on some level.
So I'm sort of hearing there that there's, authenticity is really important. Now, Liz, you and I have been for a number of years coaching a number of Australia Post local business heroes from around the country. And many of these people are in regional areas, running home-based businesses, number running professional services businesses. And this has been like an interesting thing. I know that with particularly the people that I've been coaching around, if you're comfortable sort of talking with someone, if you're being in front of the camera to some degree, or doing some short, sharp little video clips here and there, is just to imagine that that's actually the case, that I'm chatting with someone like a client that I've got in my office in sort of an old school type of way, even though that's happening less and less. In terms of your experiences, and I know you do a lot of coaching, and with a lot of coaching, particularly with female business owners that are not only running the business, but they're running the family and running their partner and attempting to wrangle the kids and all of that sort of stuff. We've got a lot of ladies are practice owners, in legal services and conveyancing and accounting services. Can you share with us some of the guidance you provide, to some of those clients that you've coached and that you continue to work with today?
I think the key thing, Bill, is to know the things that move the dial and to make sure that you do those things every single day. So I think social media, or actually serving your customers, is critically important every single day. And one of the things that I talk about when, when they kind of go, I'm not that comfortable, or I don't know what to say, is to kind of go, okay, so if a client was standing in front of you right now, what's something you really want to share? Because many women go into business because they're actually quite passionate about serving, about helping their customers. So just think, what if a customer was in front of you right now, what's something you'd really like to share with them? And you can either do, just a 1-minute video pretending the client is there, and even have a photo of one of your clients and just talk to them. Or, you could write something to say, this is something that's just top of mind at the moment, and stay in the market. So things like answering calls, but also connecting with people who might be asking questions in groups and things like that. So constantly putting yourself out there. And this, I'm not talking huge amounts of time here. I'm talking, say, 15 minutes a day, quick going through your groups, seeing if there are any questions where you can help. Another half an hour, perhaps to 3/4 of an hour, doing some social media and making sure that you're actually in the market and actually showing that you are there so people can actually follow you. And then it's things like, serving your customers, answering the phone calls, and also making it easy for them to trust you. So what are those things? Is it that you're going to have a masterclass on something? And I know there's millions of masterclasses out there, but it enables your target market to actually see what you're like, feel you, hear you, and understand that you are a human before they actually buy. So there are a few things in building a business that really need to be done every day. And it's about prioritizing those things and then scheduling the other things like administration or developing your next program or whatever that might be.
Fantastic. Well, you mentioned that there are thousands of masterclasses out there, but I think for everyone that's participated today and the many hundreds that will be able to access the recording of this, we really have had 3 masters of their professions, of their trades here, all of which are happy to, drink their own champagne, everyone, when you make contact with them and connect with them on LinkedIn. And let's, because again, it's some people say it's easy in the saying, or the telling's easier than the selling. But having worked with the 3 of you over many, many years, we're privileged and thankful at Small Business Australia that you're part of the team and are able to invest the time and energy to do it. I thank everyone that's participated. Most importantly, again, PEXA, you're a very important strategic partner. There are 10,000 conveyancing firms and property law firms in Australia. PEXA is a key element that has helped digitize the industry and provides fantastic support, and we're very thankful for our partnership. So thank you, everybody. Look forward to seeing you at our next webinar or seeing you interacting with our coaches at Business Advantage.